Hi, welcome to this very interesting discussion with the fertility experts. Fertility. We have two very good experts on fertility today. Dr. Sophia,
Hi, thank you.
clinical committee head, and she heads the Electronic City branch. Very famous for her IUI and IVF success rates. Welcome to the show, Dr.
Thank you,
Sophia.
ma'am.
And we have another very important fertility expert, Dr. Priyanka. Welcome, Doctor. She heads the South End branch in the evenings. This is a very important session and an interesting session too, where we have a very interesting topic called pain during periods or dysmenorrhea. The two very often discussed topic is flow during periods, pain during periods. Flow during periods, if it becomes excessive, it's called menorrhagia, and if the pain during periods becomes very intolerable, excessive, it's called dysmenorrhea. So let us talk with the fertility experts today to know, is it normal to have pain during periods? Should we go to the doctor as soon as we experience pain? Or when should we approach a doctor? What are the treatment options? We have so many questions and confusion on this topic. So these two experts will give us lot of clarity on this. Come, welcome to the show. Dr. Sophia, this dysmenorrhea, this word itself causes panic in few people. I remember one call I got in the midnight of one day where a mother calls me with so much anxiety telling that her daughter, who was 18-year-old, had an exam next day and suddenly she had collapsed in the midnight because of severe cramping pain in the abdomen. And she immediately wanted to admit the girl and start the treatment. So if they have such symptoms suddenly, should they immediately consult a doctor or is it okay for home medications?
Ma'am, as you said, dysmenorrhea is quite common in young girls, especially unmarried females, because this is something new to their life. Having a pain during periods, it's not something which they have experienced before. Having a period itself in a young girl is something new in their stage of life. So when they have the pain during periods, they get panicky.
Yeah.
So when if it's not very severe that it's disturbing her routine activity, home remedies or some rest or smile analgesics can help.
Okay.
But if the pain is so severe that it's disturbing her normal routine activities, then she should consult a specialist, a gynecologist.
Okay. But some girls are so sensitive, even the ordinary pain becomes very challenging for them. How do we differentiate it?
First of all, we need to give them a psychological counseling,
Okay.
because most of the time, just a simple dysmenorrhea with the psychological counseling, it will help them. But then if with that also it's not solving the problem, then it's better to meet a gynecologist and find out whether there is any pathological causes associated with dysmenorrhea.
Okay. See, if a girl with severe pain, Dr. Priyanka, approaches a doctor, and what are the usual tests you do to find out whether it is physiological, normal, or whether it is abnormal, pathological?
Yes, ma'am. Very right question, ma'am. All these girls are very worried. They are very distressed because there's so much of pain they are experiencing. So what we must understand is how is the pain. So characterizing the pain is very important. Whether the pain is starting much before the periods or is it just when the period is starting. How long the pain is persisting. So if it is a pain which is a very short duration, maybe 24 or 72 hours, then they should be doing good with mild analgesics. And if there is some other cause, like what we call as secondary dysmenorrhea, then there will be an underlying pathology, like there may be fibroid or there may be endometriosis, which we will have to see in the clinic, examine them, take a good history. Once we talk in detail to them, then we get a lot of insight as to how exactly the pain is, how severe it is, and then we can do a simple examination in our clinic itself. And if really required, we can also do an ultrasound, which will also help us in giving more insight on as to whether there is any problem in the uterus or in the pelvis, which we need to address with other types of treatments.
Okay. So you are telling me that it could be due to different causes like pelvic infections, endometriosis, like that.
Yes.
See, for example, what I told about this midnight case, no? That girl came to the hospital and we did a scan for her. Huge endometriotic cyst, both the ovaries had huge cysts. That's why she had that intolerable pain. And laparoscopically it was cleared and she was completely devoid of pain after that. Now she is married and even she has kids. So it was addressed in the right time.
Yes, ma'am.
Your doctor was telling about primary and secondary dysmenorrhea,
Yes,
doctor. What is the differentiator between the primary and
So
secondary?
basically, the first differentiation is at the time of onset. So if a primary dysmenorrhea is basically when at the time of menarche. Menarche is at the onset of menstruation.
Okay.
So that is called menarche. So primary dysmenorrhea will be at the time of menarche, whereas secondary dysmenorrhea will be later part of the life. And primary dysmenorrhea, we don't have any pathological cause. We don't have any reason why such pain is happening to that female. Whereas in the secondary dysmenorrhea, we have certain pathological cause like Dr. Priyanka has mentioned, fibroid, endometriosis, PID, or any simple infection can also cause this type of secondary dysmenorrhea.
Okay. Will PCOD will also cause?
Yes.
How
we
will
can.
it?
So PCOD people, they will have irregular menstrual cycle. Irregular menstrual cycle means they will have irregular shedding of the endometrium.
Okay.
So when the endometrium lining is very, very thick
Ah,
and suddenly she gets period
okay.
after 2 to 3 months of amenorrhea,
Hmm.
that time they will have this spasmodic or congestive type of dysmenorrhea.
Okay.
So because of irregular shedding of the endometrium,
Okay.
PCOD
You
people
mean to
can-
say membranous dysmenorrhea? Okay. But usually anovulatory cycles are painless, isn't it? So that's a very good point.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
the other thing I wanted to add is, ma'am, like in primary dysmenorrhea, what we need to keep in mind is there is no pathology.
Mm.
So as such, we need not worry or get too anxious about it.
Mm.
And what happens in these women is there is a substance called prostaglandin, which is normally secreted in the body for all women, which is very important for the period flow to come out properly and then finally the period to be completed. So in these women, either the prostaglandin level is very high
Mm.
or maybe the levels are normal, but they are having a overtly sensitive
Yeah.
behavior towards this prostaglandin.
Mm.
That is when they experience. The other thing may be just an increased pain threshold. Same amount of pain may not be very
Yes.
distressing for one lady. It may be very distressing for the other lady.
Correct.
So those things are which we need to keep in mind, and those things become clearer when we talk to them in detail. And that's why if it is distressing you, better come and consult us so we can give clarity about
Ma'am,
those
also you
aspects.
mentioned about this unmarried girls,
Mm.
18 years, 19 years having dysmenorrhea. So when we come across such situation, it is better to take proper history from them, which is not with the family members, because we need to take out any history of unprotected intercourse,
Okay.
because STDs or any pelvic infections can also cause dysmenorrhea to them.
Okay.
So such history has to be taken out from
Is it a common behavior nowadays?
nowadays. Do we? I mean,
Yeah, you
yes,
might be
ma'am.
seeing. Can you tell one instance where?
Ma'am, there was this case, unmarried girl,
Hmm.
and she has not had a period since 5 months.
Ah.
And then mother got her to the clinic, and then so we just did a routine urine pregnancy test, and it turned out to be positive.
Hmm.
So the mother was obviously denying the fact that she's pregnant. We had to do a scan and prove her that she's pregnant.
Hmm.
So in scan, we showed the baby to the mother,
Hmm.
and yet still she was not able to believe that the daughter is pregnant.
Hmm.
And she was like, my daughter had gone to this field for urination. From that field only, she must have got pregnant. Sperms must have gone from there. So such denial is there from the parents. So such history, we have to take into confidence the patient and take out the history.
Very nice. Very important. Actually, I remember one case, doctor, when I was in Sannidhi Multi-Speciality Hospital. At around 8 o'clock, when we were about to close our practice, one mother brought a girl like this with severe pain. And they were from a slum area. So, and that girl was so lean, very malnourished. So, we examined her abdomen and it was up to 9 months pregnant uterus size. We thought it must be a huge cyst or a huge fibroid which has got torsion, like that we kept thinking, because it was unmarried. Then we did a examination and she was in labor. Within 1 hour, she delivered a baby. Everybody were for a shock. And as she said, there is that factor of denial. How, as she was telling, the sperms might have traveled from somewhere. All those things cropped up the same day, and they were not ready to pay the bill also. Like that, so many things happens.
So unmarried girls, it is better to take detailed history
Yeah,
without the guardian inside the consultation room.
correct. Nice point. And when you are telling about this teenagers, unmarried people having pain during periods, will this affect their fertility in the future?
Yes, we have to keep this in mind, and they may ignore these symptoms, thinking
Yeah.
it is just a part of their life. You get periods, you have to suffer pain. They might have heard such stories from their grandmothers and their mothers saying, "We all had this problem. There's nothing much to worry." But the newer generation should realize all the lifestyle change. Lifestyle is different. The stress factors are different. There are so many environmental changes happening, toxins affecting the body. So there might be an underlying pathology which we have to clearly find out and treat them at the earliest. Like I said, primary we are not much worried because there will be no cause. It is secondary which has to be correctly diagnosed and treated, especially conditions like endometriosis and PID can have very bad impact on fertility, damaging the tubes. Endometriosis can impact the egg quality, the egg numbers can go down,
Okay.
so they can have difficulties in conceiving in the future.
Dr. Sophia, you have been practicing this infertility since so many years, and you have seen hundreds and thousands of infertile couples. How common is this pain during periods in this infertility couples?
Ma'am, actually, as Dr. Priyanka told, that dysmenorrhea is something subjective. It is not like a pain threshold of one lady may be different from another lady. So, if a patient is having severe dysmenorrhea, that severity may not be there with another lady, even with the pathology.
Okay.
Even if endometriosis is there, some lady will not have any pain at all. But even the same thing, if another lady is having, she may have severe pain. So, it's a very subjective complaint of the patient. So it's difficult to tell as such the incidence of dysmenorrhea, but yes, 1 in 10 couple, 1 in 10 females, we can see dysmenorrhea.
Okay, what could be the reasons for infertility in these people who have pain
Pain.
also?
So we have, if it's a secondary dysmenorrhea, we have, the most common is fibroids.
Okay.
Fibroid is any extra muscular growth in the uterus. Then we have something called as endometriosis, wherein the uterus lining, which is called the endometrium, is deposited anywhere outside the uterus. So that is called endometriosis. Then we have PID, which is pelvic inflammatory diseases. And sometimes we have adenomyosis.
Okay.
Adenomyosis is a bulky, big uterus, wherein the inner lining of the uterus, which is called as endometrium, is deposited in the outer layer, in the myometrium of the uterus, so
Okay.
that the uterus becomes very big and bulky. And such cases can also present with dysmenorrhea. So
Okay.
fibroid, adenomyosis, endometriosis, and PID can impact in fertility also.
Oh. Dr. Priyanka, there is we have seen that tuberculosis is very common in Indian population.
Right.
So will TB also affect this menstrual pain and menstrual flow?
Yes, ma'am. As you have correctly mentioned, TB we have to always keep in mind in these women, and that too, TB affects mainly early women in the early age group, the younger women, and they might not have even known that they have got exposed to TB, or they might be having pelvic TB, is what it is called. So they might have come in contact with somebody who has had a TB affecting the lungs, which is called as pulmonary cox. And unknowingly they would have come in contact with them, and the bacteria just enters and silently stays in the reproductive system, and it can also affect the reproductive system to a great extent, impacting the lining of the uterus, whereby the bleeding initially may be more, and then gradually it reduces and becomes very less. It can affect the tubes also, damaging the tubes to a great extent. So that is why we must diagnose it again at an early stage. And as we know, pulmonary TB or any type of TB can be treated with medications. So we need to consult and get proper treatment for that.
Okay.
The problem with TB, ma'am, is that it's just not the tubes getting affected or the uterus. It's the surrounding area,
Mm.
everything will be plastered, it will be stuck to each other. So
Okay.
such patients will keep on complaining this dull aching pain throughout,
Okay.
whether it is lower abdomen or backache,
Mm.
because everything is just stuck to each other. The
Mm.
bowel, the uterus, or the tubes, they are just stuck to each other, and they have this kind of a frozen pelvis type.
Okay.
So they have this problem of dull, low aching pain throughout their life, which may be or may not be associated with periods on.
Okay. If a couple comes to you and you have TB in mind, how do you diagnose it?
So the first thing will be the clinical suspicion from the history, be it a history of contact with the TB person or herself being infected by TB in childhood.
Okay.
Secondly, the kind of history they give, the symptoms. If they say that my periods were fine before, but after a certain time it's become very scanty, it's very, very less,
Mm.
or chronic dull aching pain,
Mm.
then these are certain things which will indicate, like, we can suspect TB in them.
Mm.
And secondly, we can do an ultrasound. In ultrasound, we get to know about the uterus lining. If there's a presence of hydrosalpinx is nothing but the tubes gets filled with water.
Okay.
So that is called hydrosalpinx, which is another classical sign of tuberculosis. Then apart from this thing, we can have other blood tests.
Okay.
You have the age-old tuberculin test.
Mm.
Then we have the latest gene expert test, which is
Okay.
nothing but the biopsy and everything.
Okay. Once it is diagnosed, we can completely
Yes,
treat
ma'am.
it.
We can completely cure it. TB is a treatable disease, and the only solution is early detection and a proper treatment of the proper 6 course or 9 months treatment. It should not be a default case or dropout or relapse case. We
Okay.
have to completely take those 6 months course or 9 months course of treatment.
Okay. Dr. Priyanka, are there any medications to cure this pain during periods?
Yes, ma'am. It would depend upon the severity of the painful period.
Okay.
If it is primary dysmenorrhea, we usually suggest them to take some tablets right from the beginning of the period. Just when the pain is about to start, it is better to take a painkiller, maybe 1 or 2 tablets in a day for a maximum of 1 or 2 days. We should not take continued tablets without expert guidance, just keep taking, because it can impact the liver and the other functions.
Yes.
And the other things are people who have asthma, who have liver damage, they must be very careful, because some of these medicines can cause reactions to them.
Okay.
So that is one thing which is very important. So consult a doctor before you take any medication. And if the pain is not getting relief with that, then we try something called as the hormonal treatment. Most often we use is a combined hormonal contraceptive pill. So that helps in reducing the flow also, and it is found to be very effective in reducing the pain associated with, and either it is primary or whether it is due to any of the condition, these hormonal pills have been very effective. If none of these work, there are other modalities also, some injections available. Then there is one Mirena, which is a levonorgestrel intrauterine device. So any of these treatment options would depend upon the age group of the lady, then what is her requirement for fertility, whether she's planning for pregnancy, whether she's married or not married, or whether she's completed her family. So her entire management line would depend on that.
Okay. See, doctor was talking about combined oral contraceptive pill for this pain. I saw one lady, she was prescribed with this OC pill when she was unmarried. After that, she has not gone to the doctor but continued this. And for years, she has taken this. And now she has come back telling that I am not able to conceive. Have you seen such?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. We have seen this, that once a prescription is given, they just continue taking the same prescription without reconsulting a doctor, because the problem was solved then. So they assume that the problem will be solved now also with the same medication.
Okay.
So this I have seen many a times. And taking oral contraceptive pills, continuously for more than 6 months or 12 months, it's not good, because it has its small risk of having ovarian cancer and endometrial cancer. So we should make them aware about the risk of taking oral contraceptive pills for a long time now.
Okay, then when that lady had taken this pill for 2 years, then we checked her AMH, it had come 0.5. So it had dropped drastically because of continuous suppression of her hormones. So what do you suggest, doctor, when they should start it, when they should end it?
Always whenever they have to start a tablet, because these are not simple tablets, and though they are available over the counter in India, does not mean they just keep using it. Maybe for 1 or 2 months under guidance, and not definitely beyond 6 months or more than a year or so, because it can, as madam correctly said, reduce the egg reserve, because there is a chronic hormone suppression going on, and then all the hormones go down, and then the ovulation doesn't happen properly, and when you're trying to conceive, you find it very difficult. And there can be long term side effects also with these tablets. They're not very safe tablets, so we have to weigh the risks and the benefits, give it in a proper dose, whether it is appropriate for their age and for their weight or not. So all these factors need to be considered before we start a tablet, and the duration for which it is given.
Yeah.
And I think also we need to make them aware that these are oral contraceptive pills. So it is not just because you are having dysmenorrhea, menorrhea, I am giving you this. They need to know that this, with oral contraceptive pills, they cannot conceive.
Exactly. I wanted that point.
The very fact that
Yeah.
it's a contraceptive pill, they have to know their action.
Correct. We have a patient asking one question, Dr. Sophia. I have been suffering from dysmenorrhea since few months. I was diagnosed with uterine fibroid. Should I undergo a surgery to relieve my pain?
So, ma'am, it depends purely on many factors. First is the age. What is the age of the girl or the lady? Secondly, what is her pregnancy planning? Whether regarding what is she planning for pregnancy now, or she's completed her pregnancy, or the size of the fibroid, the location of the fibroid. So surgery, just because you have a fibroid, that doesn't mean that you require surgery immediately. So there are many factors which will decide whether the patient requires surgery for fibroid removal or not.
Okay.
So the few
But
things.
will all fibroid cause pain?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
There are certain, depending on the size and location also,
Okay.
it will, the symptoms may vary.
Okay. If it's more in the cavity, it causes severe pain.
Yes. If it's more in the cavity, the patient may have more of congestive type of dysmenorrhea, means the pain will be starting just before the periods, and it may continue throughout the periods. And also the patients, not just dysmenorrhea, the patient may have heavy flow, because the surface area of the endometrium lining is increased because of some growth in the endometrial cavity. So they have this heavy flow, passage of clots during periods.
Okay.
So because of such reasons, we'll have to see whether she requires immediate removal, and also if she's planning for pregnancy. Such fibroids which are growing inside the uterus is called submucous fibroid, and submucous fibroid, when the patient is planning for pregnancy, has to be removed.
Okay. Doctor, so many times when we say surgery for fibroids, these patients will ask us whether they can postpone surgery, take some medication, and see whether the fibroids will regress. Do you have any idea whether it can subside with medications?
Yes, ma'am. It would, as Dr. Sophia had pointed out, the treatment would depend where the location of the fibroid is. If it is bulging or protruding into the cavity of the uterus, we may not find too much of relief with the medications.
Correct.
Because it is distorting the lining, so there will be continued heavy bleeding.
Yeah.
It may shrink a little bit with the treatment, but it doesn't go away. But you might find symptomatic relief if it is an intramural fibroid. So there are two types of medications available. One is ulipristal and GnRH agonist. So those have been found to reduce the size of the fibroids, but that is all temporary effect. As ma'am had, that's why I asked, it is just to postpone the surgery, or maybe if you have low hemoglobin because of continued bleeding, so it will give you a grace period to improve those parameters and then plan the surgery. But when we have decided on a surgery there, and as Dr. Sophia has also mentioned, if it is a submucosal, we have to remove it and plan a surgery at a later date. So we must keep that in mind.
Okay. Any other options is there, doctor, for fibroid other than surgery and medicines?
Ma'am, if the patient has completed the family, nowadays we have this ultrasound focused MR guided sonography, wherein the fibroid size is shrinked.
Uterine artery embolization.
No, not uterine artery embolization. It's ultrasound guided focused
focused ultrasound.
ultrasound.
Focused ultrasound.
Wherein it's like a simple the patient will be lying down with
Mm.
the in the prone position, and there will be
Mm.
continuous exposure of some radiations, I think, ma'am.
Okay.
Not very sure. And there will be shrinkage of the fibroid.
Okay.
So this is the latest one which has come up for fibroid.
Mm.
And apart from this is the uterine artery embolization, which we do it for patients who have completed their family, because it
Okay.
may hamper the ovarian reserve with the
Okay,
kind
okay. And we are talking so much of endometriosis, doctor. So, what is this impact of endometriosis on fertility?
Ma'am, endometriosis as such, the effect on fertility can be in two ways: because of the endometriosis per se, or because of the effect of endometriosis.
Mm.
So, if the endometriosis per se will be, there are certain chemicals which are released,
Mm.
toxins which are released from the endometrioma, which can hamper the egg quality, the implantation
Mm.
rate. So, such things, the embryo quality in the long run. So, it can hamper the pregnancy rate.
Mm.
And the effect of endometriosis will be, because of endometriosis, the tubes may be blocked,
Mm.
or there will be some adhesions happening between the tube, ovary,
Mm.
and because of such thing, because the normal tubo-ovarian anatomy is distorted,
Yeah.
so pregnancy may not happen.
Is IVF a boon in them?
Yes, ma'am, definitely. Because in such a case, we get to know the egg quality, the embryo quality,
Yeah.
and we have an option of selection, which is which is the best embryo, and we can do that. Secondly, if the infertility is because of tubal per se or the adhesions, then
Hmm.
IVF is an option for them.
Okay.
Just wanted to add one point to
Mm.
what Dr. Sophia said. We need to keep in mind that like what is the pathology in endometriosis? Normally, the menstrual blood happens in a antegrade pattern. That is, there will be a lining of the uterus which
Mm.
grows, and then it has to shed and come out of the mouth of the womb into the vagina.
Mm.
So in these women, there is a retrograde flow of the menstrual blood
Mm.
also. So instead of coming down, in addition, there is also flow back into the tubes, and then the menstrual blood goes and sits in the pelvic or
Yeah.
different places in the pelvis. So and how the body recognizes it is like if you get hurt,
Mm.
if you have an injury, there is bleeding. So what the body tries to do is make a scar
Seal,
tissue over
yeah.
there by sealing it, and then finally a scar tissue formation. Likewise happens inside the pelvis also.
Mm.
So body recognizes, oh, there is some blood here, we have to heal it with a scar tissue. So all this scarring happening inside the pelvis is the problem in endometriosis.
Yeah.
So there will be scarring of the tubes, there will be blood collections on the ovaries, which are
Mm.
called as endometriomas. That scarring will twist the bowel, it will affect the
Yeah.
bladder. So all these problems happen in endometriosis, and it can also affect the egg quality to a very large extent.
Okay.
So, in addition to the tubal factors and the effect, because of the impact on the egg quality, there is a profound effect of endometriosis on infertility,
Mm.
which needs to be recognized early, and we have to plan appropriate treatment. And as Dr. Sophia was saying, that's why a huge role of doing an IVF rather than going in for surgeries which will not help us much.
Yes.
So that is the
Endometriosis per se, we have seen that it can cause a profound reduction in the ovarian reserve
Yes.
also.
Yeah.
So patients with endometriosis, many times we are in a dilemma whether these patients we need to operate for the endometriosis, or should we directly take up for
Yeah.
IVF, because the surgery for endometriosis can itself reduce the ovarian reserve.
Correct.
And these patients are already having low ovarian reserve, so
Mm.
we'll be in a dilemma whether to operate, not operate.
Mm.
So they have this effect on the ovarian reserve as well as the quality of the eggs.
See, usually this endometriosis is a recurring disease. They would have operated before. Now again it recurs. Can we operate it again and
No,
again?
ma'am, it is not suggestible. For recurrent endometriosis, repeat surgery is not suggestible. So it is better that we give them treat them in the form of medications or
Mm.
injections, and take up for IVF if the reserve is less.
Okay. If there is severe pain, can we drain the cyst?
Ma'am, the problem with draining the cyst is that there are complications associated with it, especially pelvic abscess, because I've seen a case where patient had undergone IVF, and during the time of IVF, the doctor had drained the endometriotic cyst, and she landed up with severe pelvic abscess that it hampered her the fertility or her quality of life, everything. So it's such things draining a cyst. I think it is not, as of now, it's not
Not
suggestible.
suggestible. Doctor, we are talking about pelvic infection so much now. So, if a lady has a pelvic infection, what are the symptoms she'll present with? Or when she should go to the doctor when she has these symptoms?
So pelvic infection, as I told, that it is something very serious and it has to be diagnosed very early. They will have dysmenorrhea. Like initially, to begin with, they will just experience very painful periods, and the pain maybe says that they will feel very sick. They might even feel some nausea, diarrhea. They might be having associated fever
Fever.
also in case of PID. And such pain usually persists also.
What
even
about white
after
discharge?
and there will be white discharge. There
Foul
might
smelling.
even be foul smelling discharge also.
Oh.
So these are the pointers towards a pelvic infection,
Okay.
which will help us in diagnosing. And once any of these symptoms or features are there, especially fever, foul smelling discharge,
Yeah.
severe pain, they must consult their gynecologist. We would usually examine them by their abdominal examination, and when we do a pelvic examination, we might feel there is tenderness on the sides of the uterus. We might take some swabs to identify which bacteria is causing the infection, and timely starting of antibiotics is of utmost importance in such cases, because if the infection persists, it can damage the tubes to a great extent and can cause impact the fertility in the future.
Okay. So, can you give a piece of advice for people having pain during periods in unmarried people and in married people? One last advice.
So for unmarried people, I think first of all we need to give them a psychological counseling, because many a times it will just solve their problem. Secondly, for every time whenever you have severe pain which is distorting or disturbing your routine activities, please consult a gynecologist, because not every pain should be ignored. Because we need to rule out many other pathologies causing dysmenorrhea. And
OCP
apart, routine use of OCPs is not suggestible, and many a times besides medications, which alternate therapy of dysmenorrhea is there. You can practice yoga, you can do
Yeah.
hot water fermentation, you can do certain exercises or therapy which is alternate from our medicines.
Yeah.
You can do those therapies and try and solve this dysmenorrhea
Very
problem.
good advice by Dr. Sophia. Yeah.
And for married women, I would say that do not take dysmenorrhea lightly, especially if you're planning for a pregnancy. When the dysmenorrhea has changed in its pattern, say if you were just having 1 or 2 days of pain earlier, and suddenly you notice the pain has become more severe, or it is lasting for a longer time, that is when you must consult your gynecologist, or you have been trying for pregnancy for a long time and it has not been happening, and you have never consulted for dysmenorrhea earlier. Then better consult and take treatment at the earliest, because in the early stages things are much under control. We can treat with simpler methods and simpler reproductive techniques also. Instead of going for IVF, we can go for simpler techniques which might give you good success rates, and instead of going for IVF. And last resort, if most of these things do not work out, then IVF is a very good option. We have to weigh the pros and cons, and we should not be totally against it, because it will be individual. It is always an individualized treatment. There is no hard and fast rule. Anybody with endometriosis has to go this treatment. It will vary as per your profile, the husband's semen analysis. All these parameters need to be kept in mind before we plan for a treatment.
Thank you, doctor. So
you,
much of information you have given, from primary dysmenorrhea causes to secondary dysmenorrhea, pelvic infection, endometriosis. Beautiful information. It will really help our audience. Thanks a lot for your valuable time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, viewers, for listening to the fertility experts on everything from A to Z of pain during periods. Thank you, doctors. We have a simple, small gift for you both.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you
Thanks a
so
lot.
much.